Okay, so it's now time for our IGF Pitchers and Punters Masterclass. You know, it doesn't really get more exciting than investors taking you through a masterclass on enabling early stage ecosystems that drive real global opportunities. So, I'd like to welcome to the stage my lovely panelists. We have Shanti Mohan, founder from Let's Venture. We have Ishpreet Gandhi, founder and managing partner for Stride Ventures. And last but definitely not least, we have Ankush Aggarwal, Chief Business Officer for Ola. All right, take a seat, take a pew. Sit wherever you. Oh, we're missing somebody. And then there were two. How are we doing, guys? We okay?
Yes.
Having a good day?
Yes.
Had a good
Amazing
week,
week.
actually. It's brilliant,
Amazing
hasn't
week.
it? Yeah,
Yes.
it's a bit sad that it's kind of ending today, really. So we've only got, how long have we got? 20 minutes on the clock. So we're talking about, you know, this kind of Pitchers and Punters Masterclass, going to dig deep into your brains to get some knowledge out of you. So my first question is, what are some effective strategies and best practices for early stage startups to attract global investment?
You want me to go first?
Anyone can go first.
Okay. Hello.
I think
Yes.
you're on.
So just before I start, I'll give a quick overview on Let's Venture.
Yeah.
So we are basically an India-based company, India's largest marketplace for early stage funding. And we've helped close to about 900 companies raise about 130 million in early stage.
Wow.
And we have about 30 growth companies where we've raised close to 100 million. And we have about 20,000 investors from 60 countries on the platform.
Wow.
And our portfolio is today valued at close to 10.5 billion. But you know, if I look at early stage and if I look at global, I think those words are contradicting to each other. Because I believe when you start an early stage company, you have to first find product market fit. You have to first solve for the problem you're trying to solve with your early stage startup before you look at globalization.
Just baby steps.
Yes.
Taking baby steps
yes.
first.
And
yeah.
I think while globalization is the new buzzword and the new, you know, sexy buzzword for founders, I think it is not the right thought process when you're an early stage founder.
So
right?
setting
As
those
an early stage
expectations.
founder, first solve the problem you were trying to solve for, right? Find your customers, start monetization. You know, at least capture one market before you say that I want to cross and become global.
Yeah.
Right? That's from a product perspective. But if I were to look at global investors investing into startups, I would say that you need to find, why is the investor looking at your company? Is he active in your region, right? Like in Let's Venture, we have investors from 60 countries, but they all are looking to invest into Indian companies, right? So that's how the global investor play comes in.
Yes.
But you don't randomly go to a new market and start pitching to investors, because their thesis and your geographical focus has to match, right? And I think that is the kind of the more subtler nuance of thinking global investors.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, as the saying goes, you've got to walk before you can run, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
Have you got anything to add to that?
So first of all, a quick introduction about what we do
Yes.
in India. So I'm a founder of Stride Ventures and Stride One. Stride Ventures is our fund business where we do private credit plus early stage of fintech. And we have almost 150 companies in our portfolio across sectors. And we also run a platform called Stride One where we do the cash flow financing of these businesses. So that's where you go into deep in terms of understanding the real cash flows of consumer commerce businesses, which helps you have a pulse about the ecosystem as well. To add to what Shanti has said, and actually she's been doing this for 10 years, so her portfolio is much wider and at early stage. Had you asked this question 12 months back, that what is the playbook to get global investors in local companies, the answer could have been different. But right now, I think the most important playbook is trust and governance, especially the times we are standing today.
Yes.
I'll tell you reasons, 2-3 reasons. What happens typically in early stage businesses, right? You are trying to bet on a founder, a market size which they're trying to capture. Also, the ability of this team to capitalize on the capital which they raise in the first round of capital and build upon that. Moment it become mid and late, right? Now the private markets have opened up. So there are, if you talk about a consumer company in India, there are benchmarks. There are benchmarks. We have Sanjay sitting here. He can speak a lot about that. But there are benchmarks about what are the right contribution margins for a certain scale of business, what should be the right revenue multiples, what should be right valuation metrics. What's happening, I think, over a period of time, what I've started realizing, that there is not a lot of focus towards building a right framework around finance, governance, etc., which has started becoming more important. And as you grow, and that's not India's problem, that's any growing startup ecosystem's problem. Moment it becomes larger, right? There people generally flock into the situations and they realize over a period of time the complexities around it. So I think the real differentiator is an investor sitting outside India. If you're talking about India, or an investor sitting outside UK, if you talk about UK, they do not know about the market as such, right? So how do you solve for the trust factor in terms of stating whatever you are saying on your pitch actually gets reflected in terms of what the business stands out as? So I think that trust is the most important element to solve for, which is an extension towards having right governance frameworks. And you start thinking about it. It's important that businesses start thinking about it, and today is the best time to do that.
Well, I've only asked you one question. You've already dropped so much gold on the stage here. I feel like you're about to add something.
Yes.
Yes, go for it.
Sorry?
I feel like you were going to add something.
No,
you're just looking at me with those beautiful eyes.
Yes.
So what are the important factors to consider when entering new markets as an early stage ecosystem?
Entering a new market, right? And that's exactly goes back to my earlier point of, I think, solve for the current market you have launched before you look at a new market. I think that's a very simple first principle thinking of early stage companies.
Do you think that's a mistake that a lot of early stage companies make?
Yes, that's because just like how we like to put AI and then we like to put blockchain, now we want to say, okay, I'm in 4 countries, right? Instead of that, this is just the definition of scale, right? Where you actually become the leader in your city or if you're a local company, right? You first kind of capture the market there, because every market has a different playbook, right? Exactly to what Ishpreet was saying is that if you look at metrics, if you look at how the market behaves, it is very, very nuanced when you actually enter into a new market. Like at Let's Venture, we've completed 10 years on May 31st. And just last year, we decided to enter a new market, right? Because I don't think that we could have entered a new market maybe 5 years earlier, right? And exactly to his point, we carried the trust and credibility of being the largest player in India before we enter a new market. And it is so much more easier. Your timelines are accelerated when you enter a new market, because what I have done in India for 10 years, I'll probably do in a new geography for 2 years, within 2 years. Right? But I don't have a good answer on entering a new market for
that's all right. Everything you're saying is gold. Don't worry.
Yes.
Have you got anything to add to that?
I'll just add, I'll give you an instance. We funded a business, an alcoholic beer business in India in 2015. And that company decided to go overseas immediately 2 years while cracking the India market. It was positioned very differently amongst being at a mid-price point with a very differentiated taste point. And they entered UK, US, Singapore, Malaysia, set up offices, right? All to understand, sponsored a lot of events to get the presence, all to understand they were not aware about the regulatory market. In this case, it's more nuanced naturally, and curtailed back over a period of 24 months. That resulted into the natural capital outflow, which could have concentrated on the business. More importantly, the focus towards building a region. Now, when a founder is actually concentrating on a region seriously, that means that there are certain resources who are running with them. In order to start a country and go deeper, you need to understand the local expertise. You need to have a local expertise.
Definitely.
You need to have global touch points. You need to have regulatory environments. All of that needs to be solved for before you start actually going outside your playbook. And so that's a very judicious call. Some people do think a SaaS business makes sense, right, to do it globally if it's a global product, but most of the consumer commerce, depending nuanced sectors, you need to first of all capture the market, as she said. Becomes the lion in the market before you start going outside.
So just to add to that point, right, when he talked about the SaaS business, we know of a lot of companies which started with US being their market, but that was not being global, right, because their first market was the US. And then they take the product from US to other geographies. So I think the definition of globalization for entrepreneurs has to be redefined, saying what does globalization really mean, right? Because I have today, like I said, investors from 60 countries on the platform, but I don't think I'm a global platform yet, right? Because we're still solving for founders in India. Of course, we funded, now we've started looking at global founders, right? But the aspect of then taking the marketplace for founders outside India, then my sourcing would change, right? The metrics on which you would measure a good company in that geography would change, right? So there are more subtle kind of definitions you need to think about when you start thinking about global markets.
Okay, and we realize we've got a short amount of time on the clock. What role does government support play, you know, in helping not necessarily just early stage startups, but just startups in general?
I would say government just being out of the way is great. That's it, right? We don't need help as founders. I think the ecosystem is really good. Like in India, it's a really good ecosystem.
Yeah, it's thriving.
We would rather feel that the government just stay out of our way.
Yeah.
I think.
GST, don't worry.
Yes.
Actually, I have a counter opinion in this for sure.
Yeah.
So if you see,
I like that.
I'm actually taking India's playbook because we work there more. If you see the real evolution on some of the sectors in India, I think it's about right public infrastructure and plugging yourself in that public infrastructure. If you see fintech revolution in India, you talk about GST, you talk about UPI. All of this actually has a playbook for new companies to innovate smartly and plug themselves with the government infrastructure and come up with solutions.
Yeah.
Now, there can be funny regulations here and there, which happens in India, but that happens everywhere. But the point is that open infrastructure, government infrastructure can be really potent. If they are embracing startups. For example, we've just come up with a draft logistics policy which is getting implemented in India. If done well by startups, if embraced well, that can have amazing efficiencies on the logistics cost in India, right? So I think, and we have similarly a lot of other initiatives which has come up with, there's an ONDC which is in play, which is coming. So I think a good public-private partnership, in this case public startup partnership done well innovatively has some legs.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm going to squeeze one more question in, or one more question out of you. What are the key factors that investors like yourself consider when evaluating early stage startups of potential investment? You know, and how can entrepreneurs enhance their appeal in those areas?
I would say for early stage startups, right,
Yeah.
it is completely founder driven, right? So you double index on founders, right? Whether what is the founder market fit, right? What is the founder domain fit, right? So it's mostly about founders, because markets will change, right? But how coachable is the founder? How deeply does he understand his domain, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is mostly about founder evaluation, and that's why it's so much more harder to predict success. This is like trying to pick your chess champion in a class of 10 when the child is like 10 years old, right? And you kind of want to predict who's going to become the chess champion. You don't know, right? You kind of give them the same resources, but it's very, very founder kind of centric. I mean, this is for early stage companies.
Yeah.
Yes, but Ishpreet, you might want to add.
No, almost there. I just want to add on 70% founders, 30% has to be a business and team. You can't do anything without team. So right kind of team. I think in today's time, what we've seen a change is that a lot of experienced founders who are coming. Now they can really come with a certain expertise and certain team. That becomes an add-on, especially in times like these when the liquidity is not very, very easily available. Right? So I think it's almost there, 70% for founders for us, and 30% would be a extension of team and the kind of naturally business model product they're trying to do.
Brilliant. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much to Shanti and Ishpreet. Thank you for parting your knowledge onto us today. Really valuable, really useful.
I have
so
a question for you.
Yes.
How do you manage all these different conversations? You must have really prepared a lot.
So on the outside, I'm like, hey, it's cool. On the inside, I'm a bit like,
yes.
Remember that, don't forget that.
Yes.
But I hope I'm doing a good job so far.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you.